the strength that it takes us to climb down into the trenches and then back up is the same strength that allows us to climb the mountains.
The opposite of living is not dying. The opposite of living is surviving.
So we have got to stop blaming ourselves for not thriving when we were just barely hanging on by a thread. In actuality, we should be celebrating the fact that we made it through.
The seasons where we're not thriving are almost more important than the seasons where we are. Because when you are in the trenches is when you are getting either the biggest lessons or the biggest, or what will become the biggest lessons to others and to your life. Those are going to be what define the depths of your life.
We only know as much light as we have known darkness.
The best of me is today.
We need to surround ourselves with people who can always see the best in us.
That is where my life changed, was just creating a few hours a week to just unapologetically be with myself.
We have to create time because you're more creative over your time than you think you are. But there's like no one's coming to save you.
We have to make time for the things that feed our soul.
Get ready to love everything I am. All I want to be and understand. 'Cause I won't dim my light for no one.
They told me I had to pick one thing. No. Diamonds are multifaceted, and so are we. It's about time we let all the parts of us shine. How can we climb out of the box and fully embrace our own authenticity? I'm Kara Lee, and it's time for the Multi-Passionate Mama podcast, where clarity and creativity go hand in hand. Welcome. It's another episode of the Multi-Passionate Mama podcast. I'm so happy that you are here. Today we get to deep dive into the trenches of life and how important it is to talk about the difficult times of life, because that's what helps us to eventually climb the mountains. And so today my amazing guest has done exactly that. She's been through some of the worst things in life, and we have so much in common in that arena. But then she's also gone on to speak on amazing stages and then just like live an incredible life. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear this conversation because it's just so inspiring. Desiree Probolsky is a life coach for special needs moms and medical moms. She lives in Orange County, California, and has 3 kids. Her son, Asher, is 7 and has severe nonverbal autism and has had 2 open heart surgeries to survive. She just launched her online community, Situation Mama, for special needs moms and medical moms around the world to come together for community and connection. Her mission is to bring these mamas together to find joy while honoring their grief, which is so beautiful. She says the best thing a mom can do to help her family is to first start with herself. She says she's obsessed with coffee, avocados, and morning walks. She is so amazing, and it was such a joy to have this conversation with her, and I know that you're going to love it too. I'm so excited to dive into your story and to talk about the things that light you up. I know that you also have special needs, well, a special needs kiddo and other kiddos, and I am just so thrilled to get to hear your story and how you get to do the things that you love while being a busy mom. So I want to hear from you and hear all about you.
Oh, well, I'm so happy to share. So I'm ready.
Well, let's dive in. How do you find ways to take care of you and do the things that like your passions and your pursuits? Because you weren't always a mom, you weren't always caring for other people and spending your time filling their needs. Like, you had dreams and passions and pursuits before you became a mom. So tell us about what those were and how you find a way to do those things now.
Well, I feel like my life before I had kids was it looked very different. I spent I didn't get married until I was about 31, but up until, and I had my first baby at 33. So most of that time I was working in high profile politics. I was running a fundraising company. I would raise money for candidates and some nonprofits, and I was all over the place. Um, and then when I had children, it took a hard turn. Like my business scaled down dramatically. And I did do some fundraising on the side on a much, much lower scale. Um, and then I had my first daughter and was just blown away by motherhood and all the things, because it's a very different life.
Yeah.
The one that you can't really, you don't know what it's going to look like till you get into it, even if somebody
Yeah.
tries to tell you. Um, so yeah, I would say that when I was, before kids, there was a lot of socializing. I'm an off the charts extrovert. I was the ringleader of all my single girls and in our 20s, and Friday nights out and Saturday nights out. And then there was kids, and that just changed a lot of things. And then when my son was born so I have two daughters. And then when my son was born, he's my baby with a severe heart defect. And then we got the autism diagnosis a few years later, and everything really shifted. And I like to tell people, I mean, not that I like to, but it's the reality, was that for about a decade, I was living under a rock. There was not a lot of fun, or, I mean, there were moments, and I'm the personality type that I've been very blessed to be somebody who always is looking for the positive in the day, or what's to come. But the reality is that my girls they were hard babies, right? Colic, reflex, like, my second daughter was born with floppy tissue in her throat that didn't develop till she was about 2. So feeding was impossible, and a lot of sensory issues that I didn't understand with the girls, but a lot of vomiting. Like, we had the stomach flu for literally 5 years every day. So when my son came, there was more, it was all next level, right? Heart baby, all the things. But so yeah, under a rock, massively under a rock. I
It's
drew
like living in survival mode, which I
one
entirely
all I did
literally I'm
for
just
a
like there's a
decade.
decade of my life that just like didn't exist because it was just living in survival mode. Like,
It 100% is like that. And survival, what I realized, with time more in the recent years, is that the opposite of living is not dying. The opposite of living is surviving.
mm,
And because now you're not even present anymore, you're just surviving. Everything goes into that. And I mean, being a mother has been the highlight of my entire life. There's nothing I've wanted more, except to do it with my husband, Adam. But it took everything. The first decade, my oldest daughter is almost 12 now, but the first decade took every bit of me. And a lot of it, most of it was survival. I mean, our parents both went through a lot during that time as well, my husband and I, and we both lost our fathers during that time. There was some family tragedies. There were the births of our children. There was a lot happening during that decade. So during this time from 2012, when I became a mother, like, the world shifted. I realized, like, there was this thing called Instagram, and then there was this thing called podcasts. And I was, at the beginning of my early 30s, I'm running a multiple 6-figure company in high profile politics, fundraising, lots and lots of money, a very different looking life for me. And then, fast forward to, years down the road. I mean, I didn't even, I mean, I have an MBA, and I just didn't feel like I knew how to, what is this? What is the world? What's happening in the world? What is technology? What is, all the things. So, as I always say, as I was coming out from under the rock, I can officially say now that I think I am out from under the rock, but
yeah.
it took me the last like 3 years, to be honest, because I didn't even listen to a podcast till I was in COVID lockdown. I didn't even get on social media on Instagram until around that similar time, maybe well into COVID lockdown, actually, only because my sister started to write a lot on Instagram and was like, you have to see what I'm putting out. You have to see it. And I want to share things. And I'm like, what is Instagram? I don't have time for that. Or I don't have time for podcasts. Anyway, just to give you a brief background, because it took a while for me to be able to find my joy again and to make time. And I think one of the biggest factors was during COVID lockdown, we had 3 kids for 13 months. We didn't even go to the grocery store for 13 months because my son's heart was compromised and we knew he needed another open heart surgery. And he was at the time only about 4 years old, 3, 4 years old when COVID lockdown was for us. And he, we were just terrified. And I knew that with all of his severe autism stuff, like staying up all night, every night, or I delivered all of his therapies at home myself with ABA and speech
Yeah.
and OT on Zoom, because at the time he was so young. And even if he wasn't young, like my son has also severe ADHD, so he's never going to sit in front of a screen and do any
Yeah.
kind of therapy. So I was, and we were in early intervention, which is considered to be like, if you do early intervention, it's everything,
Yeah.
and so
Absolutely.
and that's what everybody told me. Now I have other opinions about other things,
Yeah.
but I also feel that I wanted to make sure that I didn't leave anything on the table during this time. So I
Yeah.
showed up to every day during that time. Like it was my job. Like my whole life's work was ABA therapy and OT. And I would set up obstacle courses in my house and put trails of M&Ms to get him to do the obstacle courses for OT.
Yeah.
And it was insane. And we slept 3 hours a night at best. So it was just really, to say it was hard is just an understatement. I was broken, honestly. I didn't even know. I didn't know I was suffering. I didn't know that until about 8 months into lockdown when I went on a walk by myself for the first time. First time, listened to a podcast about suffering. I don't know why, but on that day, on that walk, I just realized, oh my gosh, like a ton of bricks hit me. I'd been suffering because up until then, I was on a mission to fix my child. I needed to fix Asher. I needed to
Yeah.
get him back on track and get him into the world. And then all of a sudden, I just was thinking, wait a minute, like, I just want to love him and be his mom. Like, I was bone tired and
Yeah.
like I wanted to love him and be his mom. So I bursted out crying, ran back to the house, ran through the front door, and sobbing, just grabbed him and hugged him and said, I love you. Mommy's so sorry. I love you just the way you are. And we're not going to suffer anymore. And then I told all of my, everybody in the house, my husband, my girls, I ran to their screen, they're on homeschool on their screens and I'm like, we're done suffering. We're all done suffering. So,
That's
so
so
during,
beautiful. Well, and we did ABA for a decade, and about a year ago, we sort of quit, sort of were forced out. And it's been like amazing to see the difference in our lives now that every single moment of our lives is not therapy
right?
anymore.
And
And
because it's so consuming. Like
it's
it's
all consuming when you're like, no, I'm supposed to. I'm supposed to. This is the only way. This is what they tell me that this is what I'm supposed to do all the time. And it's so eye-opening to start to understand how like our brains operate on stress when you're like, oh, the fight, flight, or freeze. My brain was just shutting down. Like I had this experience the other day where it was probably a Saturday because Saturdays are the hardest for me because my severely autistic son, he's 12 now, Joshua. He was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when he was 7 and he was completely and utterly nonverbal before that. And then he was diagnosed and then he started talking and it was this miracle. And now he yells at me all the time. Now that he can talk, he just yells at me all the time. So we're home on Saturday and my husband works on Saturdays
oh
and he
wow.
just spent the whole Saturday yelling at me. And after like hours and after a whole day of being yelled at, all day because he'll just perseverate on like one sentence, like one thing he wants. Like he'll be like, he doesn't really have full sentences. He'll just have like three words, like 2017 Dodge Grand Caravan car, like buy me that car that I saw on the internet. And I'm like, I'm not buying you a car. Sorry. But then he'll scream it at me for 6 hours. And I'm like, I'm not buying you a car. Then he'll scream it at me for 6 hours. But then my brain will shut down. And we got to the end of this day, and my husband got home from work, and my brain had shut down so much that my husband was like, you need to go for a walk. And usually my response to that would be like, no, I'm fine. You need my help here to take care of the kids and da da da. And my brain was like, what's a walk? Like I couldn't function. So he like stood me up and like pointed me towards the door, and I like walked to the end of the driveway, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like I don't know what walk means
Yeah,
because my
no,
brain had
I
just
understand exactly what you're
like,
saying.
yeah, I'm like, my brain had literally just shut down because I was so
You
overstimulated.
could go
And
into that sort of survival, like
yeah,
that.
you literally, it's
Yeah,
like all functioning shuts off and it's like you're just barely breathing and like that's it. And we were just about to have this huge storm. And so there was lightning going
right.
off in the distance. And I just started following the lightning and just started moving. And like I just followed it until the lightning and ended up going around the block. And by the time I got around the block, I was like, oh, oh, I can think again. Oh, that's what happened to me. My brain shut off. I had zero capacity to understand anything at all. And I've looked back on my life over the last decade, just like you're describing for you, because I literally am totally relating to everything you're saying. And
Yeah.
I've looked back on my life and been like, why didn't I know all those things then that I know now? How come I wasn't accomplishing things now? Like, why am I just seeing the light and understanding these things? And like, why am I just releasing my album and just doing my podcast? How come I wasn't doing these things then? And then I'm like, because I literally didn't have the brain power. Because I literally,
It
like,
goes,
it's,
yeah. Well, your survival is survival. And that's why I told you it's the opposite of living because you're not doing anything. I feel the exact same way you described. Like, I felt like I was existing.
yeah.
That,
Well, and you don't have the mental capacity when you're in survival mode to thrive. And so we have got to stop blaming ourselves
yeah.
for not thriving when we were just barely hanging on by a thread. In actuality, we should be celebrating the fact that we made it through
That you
those
made it through.
times.
And look, not, I think there is a few things that come up when we say that. Like, one thing is that not every season of our life is designed to thrive. Like, I think we live in
Mm.
this world that everybody's out there, like, be happy, live your best life. Well, not every season is designed to be living your best life.
Ah,
And I just think that there's a lot of pressure, right? Like, I remember, like, I mean, this is what it felt like. Every other mom around me, starting with my girls, had this like easier time, it felt like, right? Like it was, I was, my babies, like everybody had something, extra. I call it the extras. I had a lot of extras. And I remember trying to go to Mommy and Me, or not even just Mommy and Me. With my first daughter, I tried to go to just the coffee meetup with all the ladies from my synagogue. We were like, okay, we all had babies together, literally within weeks of each other. And so we were all at home. A lot of the moms were on maternity leave, and I would go with my newborn car seat. But the difference is their newborns would sleep. None of my newborns ever slept, ever.
mm,
Like, everybody just screams bloody murder. And I remember like being in the corner of like Starbucks while everybody was like over there talking with their coffee and trying to like calm my baby, and sweating and like, trying, my heart racing. And and people walking by making jokes like, oh, gonna call CPS on you, or I'm gonna, and I remember just thinking like, oh, it just doesn't feel so funny though. Like, and just being like,
No, and wildly inappropriate and like,
and I'm
no.
a new mom and I'm having severe postpartum anxiety that I didn't even understand or begin to, I
Yeah.
mean, I still haven't totally unpacked because at the time, postpartum anxiety wasn't even acknowledged. Like it was
Yeah.
postpartum depression. And so if I wasn't crying and feeling detached or depressed, like my psychologist told me that I didn't have the luxury of feeling scared or terrified. So I'm a new mom and I just was a mess. And so yeah, I think that going back to, it's just survival sometimes. And sometimes we have these seasons, right? And not, like I said, not every season is for survival. But the next thing is that, I mean, just one thing I want to say that I've learned, and I'm in a season right now where, it's a really beautiful season, actually. I could get very emotional because the one thing I want to say, it's so important, is that I'm in a season where I'm seeing that everything makes sense and that it was all
Mhm.
so important. And so the seasons where we are not thriving are almost more important than the seasons where we are. Because when you are in the trenches is when you are getting either the biggest lessons or the biggest or what will become the biggest lessons to others and to your life. Those are going to be what define the depths of your life. So I'm in a season right now where, as I'm doing the work I'm doing with special needs moms and medical moms, and I've just launched a community. And this past Saturday night, I was the guest speaker at our local children's hospital gala. And it was just so moving to stand up there on behalf of every mom in our community, Carolee, like to be able to say, I stand on the shoulders of all of these moms who have been through this, and to know that I can stand up there and say that because I myself was in the trenches under the rock. That is so just, I mean, it lit me up in a way that I've never been lit up. Like it's where everything starts to make sense. You know, you,
Oh.
yeah. So
Well, and it's like we talk about doing what lights you up, but the truth is that we only know as much light as we have known darkness. And because we know,
yes,
we know the darkness really intimately.
yes.
We know it so well.
Yes, I mean, so much. And I mean, I could talk about some of my trenches like for days, right? But we're not going to do that right now. But my point is, there's been moments where a lot of moments, I said in this decade, there was stuff that happened with my work that blew up. Of course, it's politics, so it gets really nasty. And there was, just so many things in so many places in my life that were blowing up for literally a decade straight. And I remember when I was 3 kids in and living in a hospital with open heart surgery and a newborn, and my little girl's at home in Orange County. I was in LA for his surgery. And I just remember thinking, like, when you're can't fit into your clothes and you're up all night and every day feels like you've been run over by a train. I remember just thinking the best of me was in my past. Like I would tell my friends, like sometimes, like who I used to be. And what's so beautiful is that the best of me is today. And I didn't know
Yes.
that that was ahead of me back then.
Well, and it always is. And what we so need is people. We need community so badly. But
I
what we
know.
need is people who can see that best of us right now. Even if we're the biggest we've ever been, even if we are not wearing makeup, even if we are in our stretchiest pants, even if we are,
You're 7 months postpartum and buying
right,
two maternity jeans so that you can look cute in the outfit.
right. We should like make maternity clothes the norm because they're comfy. But anyways, we need to surround ourselves with people who can always see the best in us.
100%.
And
But
we
I
should be going around seeing the best in each other
every
always.
day. And that's why I think that, like I said, I think the season I'm in now is just building so much perspective because it's taken me, like I had a major catastrophic thing happen in my career about 15 years ago this October, so almost 15 years ago. And I was really successful, really young. I started my first business, around the clock, like, working, like sleeping on campaign floors and campaign offices and being a total staffer for a senator and living that life that I like loved at the time so much. And then just some crazy stuff happened with some candidates that I was working for and or clients, they were actually elected. But it's taken almost 15 years for me to find my way back to something that fills me up so deeply. And I just never, ever, ever believed or would have guessed that that existed for me ever during some of those years when we were in it really, really deep, not just with all the things that my dad, passed away from pulmonary fibrosis during COVID. And, early on in COVID, he got really, really in the trenches of that. And my son needed another open heart surgery, and we had been on lockdown and we were isolated, and I'm the therapist, and just so much stuff in a decade.
You know what occurs to me is that the strength that it takes us to climb down into the trenches and then back up is the same strength that allows us to climb the mountains and enjoy the view.
Oh yeah, it really is. And it's like I said, it's just and I'm so grateful we're having this conversation because I think that whoever is listening who is in those trenches, who thinks the best of them is left behind them somewhere else, or that pieces of them that they miss so deeply, they think that that might not ever be real for them again. Like I was there. And I want to tell you that it is the trenches are what's going to make it so amazing in the future. I promise you that. And I can speak to that. I never thought that I was going to get to be the leader of a community of the most incredible, extraordinary moms I've ever met who live in a way that, like, it's so inspiring. And so they're just amazing women, and be able to then get up on a stage and share our story that it's raising a lot of money for the hospital, and see my son thrive and change the world. He wasn't there, but he is changing our world. He's changed my world, and just see the beauty that's coming out of all of it. And if, 5, 6 years ago, when I was newer to this diagnosis, I never would have imagined that this would be our life. When he was first diagnosed with autism, I thought my life was actually over. I remember that year I was almost turning 40, and I was like 39. And I remember thinking, okay, God, at least I had the first 40 years of my life. And I'm so grateful that I got to have that. And thinking actually that my life was over, which in some ways in this moment feels a little bit comical because it was actually like the main purpose. Like I gave birth to my son, but he gave me life.
I love that. So tell us what it's like now to do as you begin. It's like the beginning of a new life, right? Like how do you, as you're stepping out of the shadows of those trenches, how are you seeing the light? How are you beginning to do the things that you really love, kind of again, but kind of in a brand new way?
Well, I think one really key thing that I was going to say early on, I got distracted. Sorry about that. I know I'm all over the place,
You're good.
but I think it's just making time for yourself. Because here it is, as a mom, I was talking to one of my best friends on the phone the other day. If we don't declare our time or our moments as moms, like it's really hard to get them. Like, I don't know that we're going to get them. Like no magic fairies walking in to say it's your time now for yourself. Like we kind of have to declare that. And especially as a special needs mom, I get to do that in really small bursts sometimes. And I need to wrap my mind around that being my time. So the reason why I think creating time for yourself is so important, whatever it is that you're doing, if you're just checking the internet, or if you're just going through the Starbucks drive-through, like it's so important, because that is where my life changed, was just creating a few hours a week to just unapologetically be with myself, doing
Oh,
whatever it is that I want to do or need to do. And it started off with just watching some TV, or then just like looking at on Instagram. I mean, I know so many people have such harsh feelings about social media, but I had never been on it before. And seeing some of the people that I follow sharing their stories, their daily life, and how they were living, which opened my eyes up to, wow, like maybe I could try that. Or maybe I don't want to just exist anymore. I want to go live. I want to take my kids somewhere too. And I mean, it was the starting with just time. And then when I was able to have the time, then I started to be able to just imagine what I wanted to do, or what we could possibly do, or just get in touch with what do I even want? And
mm,
then, just sometimes it was journaling, even just the most brief on the hard days. And I still have it in my notes, actually, in my phone. And it's so interesting. I love when I come across it once in a while. It's from such a long time ago, but during those trenches, just like bullet points just were flowing out of me of everything that was hard, and just writing it all down. Right now, this sucks, and all the things that were hard. And it's so interesting looking back now, because I can see how much, wow, like that was so hard, and we're not there anymore. I'm not there anymore. So it's just finding the time to even just know who you are. What do you want to do? Like, what am I gonna do now? Like, what do I want to call into my life, or what do I want to let go of in my life? And then you can have some perspective on where we're going, and then just start doing it. Like just
mm,
little things. And whatever it is, you want to go for a walk, you want to go for a hike. I mean, those are things that light me up. I'm a big walker. I walk all the time, and it's given me my life. I mean, honestly, I'm so grateful for my walks. But like for other moms, it might be yoga, or sometimes, at night, because I think we're not machines. We are humans. And I have to remind moms, like, well, sometimes it's, excuse me, as simple as telling my husband, like at night, okay, I'm going to go change now, wash my face. And I need to do that by myself, to have a minute to just transition to the night, or transition to relaxing. And sometimes that lasts 5 minutes, right? Because then everybody's running in. But I need to declare, this is going to be my time right now. So I need you to be on top of that. And like we've had conversations where it's like, okay, certain things he needs to do, and we support each other in that, so we can help each other create that and protect that.
yeah.
So I mean, that's really what it is creating the time, declaring it to the world, and having the support of a community, including our spouse. But sometimes our spouse is in the trenches too. And sometimes I'm worried about him too. So we have created a massive community. I think that is the answer really for all moms. But in my community of special needs moms, it's even more important, because for some of us, we're in this for life. Like my son is going to need me
Yeah.
so I better pace myself. This is the marathon, right?
Yeah.
And so that means that we have our therapy team in and out of the house all day. I've got a caregiver in and out of the house all day. I've got my mom, my sister, my husband's best friend is single and lives down the street, and he's in and out of the house. We have so many people in our community. We've got our friends from our synagogue down the street and everywhere. And we've got, like, it is crazy the amount of community we have. It can be totally chaos in our house at any given moment, but that's what keeps us going. That's how I'm able to say, okay, like, okay, uncle, can you go pick up the girls from school? And I'm taking Asher to swim lessons. And like, it's the only way I'm able to make it all work. And then also have a few hours a week that might be mine.
That was so, so beautiful and so much in there. Community is so essential, and I think that's one of the things, it's one of the first things that we let go when we start getting into those trenches, when we start, in survival mode. It's like, oh, everything's going wrong. Let me shut down and go hide because I don't want my problems, my negativity to touch anyone else. Let me just keep it all to myself. And it's like, actually, that's like the worst thing we can do. And like when I very first started my podcast was kind of like the my first steps in getting out of that survival mode. It was like, oh, there's a whole world out here. Like I didn't know any of this existed. Wait, other people have hard
Right?
lives too? I
No,
didn't know this because I was just trapped in this bubble for
it's
so
really a
long.
battle. It really is. It's real. And I think for special needs moms or medical moms, it's even more so. It's because you can't go out easily. I can't even go to the grocery store with my son.
Right. Well, and for so long it was like, well, I don't fit in the diabetes community and I don't fit in the autism community because neither one understands. Like, no therapy, you can't just give him sugar all day long. He's diabetic. Like, no, I can't just take him to the JDRF functions because he's severely autistic. He doesn't get it. Yeah, I know he's 12. This just doesn't work.
But it's
And
100. I mean, the world, needs to hop on board that it's a different lifestyle we lead, right?
yeah,
In autism. So, yeah, it's
yeah,
it's not so easy to just do something or just.
yeah,
I don't even think it's easy to just be on time to school. Like I go to I have to drop my girls off because they go to a different school because my son's in the autism program.
yeah,
So he's at a different school. And so I got to go through one carpool line and then I got
yeah,
to get out of that and then go back to his school and sit through the carpool line until I'm able to get to the front of the school where I am allowed to park.
yeah,
And then I gotta hope that he's ready to get out of the car because now that he's getting so big and heavy, I can't just lift him up and pull him out of the car. And then sometimes he protests, he's not getting out. Then what? And then I gotta go to then I take him to class and they're like, you gotta go check in at the front office because by now we're like 15 minutes late. And and then I go to the office and my favorite is when they say, so why are you late today? And I said, because we still have autism. Like that's why.
oh, yeah. So it didn't like, we didn't sleep it off.
Yeah, I just, and I was so stressed. Like I'd cry. Sometimes I'd leave the office crying because we were late and shameful. And I am just gonna, I was thinking I need to make a post about this for my community. I no longer am ashamed of it. I am also not going to scream and yell and get my kids all dysregulated all in the morning because God forbid we're late at the office for my son. And yes, I mean, I'm not saying that you should purposely be late and not care. I respect it all, but
But our sanity is not worth all that crap.
I didn't. My son is living his best life and he is who he is. And I'm not going to scream it out of him to be a different person. And I'm not going to dysregulate him before I drop him off at school so that because we needed to be on time for their rules. That's what I'm saying. Like on Saturday night in my speech, I was saying autism is a whole family event and the world needs to get on board with that because he's not a problem. The world's rules, all the
We
rules.
need more flexibility, just like overall. Well, and I have three at three different schools, and my son's bus comes to pick him up at 7 a.m. And this morning he at 6 a.m. he was like, "Why the heck is the bus not here yet at 6 a.m.?" We were like, "Dude, go back to sleep, please."
Listen, we are all just barely making it every day.
Yeah, he
And
was
so,
screaming his face off at 6 a.m. this morning. Like, why is the bus not here yet? Hello. But yeah, it's like the flexibility is such a thing. But then you were talking about like we have to, I loved your words, create time because trust me, you have more control and more you're more creative over your time than you think you are. But there's like no one's coming to save you, and like nobody can go pee for you, and nobody can go take a drink of water for you, and nobody can breathe for you. Like I've tried to have my husband pee for me, he cannot do it. Tried. Like for real, like you have to care for you. Like you have to. Literally, even if they wanted to, no one can do it
Well,
for
and
you.
like I say, if mom's not well, nobody in your family is well. So why do we believe, and I am guilty of this myself for many years, and I try not to do this,
Yeah, same.
but it is there is no shame in taking care of yourself. In fact, I think it's awful if you don't take care of yourself. I think it's the most selfish thing we could do as a mother is to not take care of ourselves, because if we are not well, our family is not well. You are not helping anybody.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah, well, because what happens is when we don't take care of ourselves, when we're not really whole in like by ourselves, what are we giving to our family? We're giving them the bitter martyr, like who's burnt out and not happy and not lit up. And like, is that the mom that you want to be to
All
your
right,
family? Like,
right. Like, I mean, don't we have to take care of ourselves to be the mom, to be the wife, to be the all the things, the
yeah,
friend, the sister, whatever it is. And I think the way we do it is to prioritize ourselves. And that also
yeah,
is not just doing basic things, but to have fun in your life and
yeah,
make yourself have time for community, for friendships, a friendship
yeah,
community, just people who take care of my kid or help with my kid, or not just family, but like I've got my girlfriends that I love and adore. And I have to tell you, I don't think I could do all of this with the way that I do without those girls. Because um, even April was Autism Awareness Month, and I'll give you an example. I mean, they've been in the trenches, a lot of them, since I got the diagnosis. Was around the time I met a lot of them when my girls were starting at, like out of preschool and regular school. And I was a mess, when I met them. And then through the years, all my healing has happened, and now I'm where I'm at. And this past April, they invited, like one of them invited me to coffee in the morning, and I'm like, okay, yes, because I make it a priority to try to schedule a window of time once a week for coffee with a friend, because I'm such an extrovert that just feeds my soul.
yeah.
So I was like, okay, yes, I'm going to meet you. So I go meet her, and like 5 or 6 of my besties are there, and they surprise me, and they're all wearing hats that say love needs no words.
Aw,
And it was like like hats, t-shirts, autism awareness. And I was just blown away. I
that's
mean, I was blown
amazing.
away. And it was just coffee, but but the way they showed up in
It's
just
the love.
love, and they were letting me know that, and they always say team Asher, my son is Asher, team Asher. And it was just to know that yes, they see me, they show me every day, they are in it with me. But I make time for my friends too. Like I think it's, yes, community is, you get so much from a community, but you also have to give to a lot to a community too. And I
Well,
love that,
it's like witnessing someone is like the greatest act of love.
Yeah,
It just is. Like that's how you show somebody like see like really, really seeing them, really witnessing them. That's how you show them that they really matter.
100%. It's so special. And I can't tell you how much just that moment, I didn't expect it at all, like at all. But when they did that, I just feel ever since, like, it's been probably like 5 or 6 weeks since then. And it's just lifted up my spirits so much. Like, I'm like, oh, wow, I've got a team with me, and they all came on Saturday night to watch me do the speaking thing at the hospital, and, um, excuse me, for the hospital. And they were so supportive. And it's just, community is everything. And And we need girlfriends. I know, as you know, even introverted women need girlfriends. A lot of my girlfriends are introverted and they love their girlfriends too. We all need girlfriends, and we all might need it in different ways, but like we have to make time for the things that feed our soul. And
Yes.
we
Well,
don't,
yeah.
it's a mess.
Well, and the way that we show up, like in the world and to our families, is completely different when we're doing the things that we really love, when we're feeding our souls, when we're meeting with those people, when we're, I mean, like I finished writing this song that I've been working on for a little bit yesterday, and like when I finally heard it done, like I was on cloud nine, like I was dancing my butt off and just like so excited because it's like a really like quite a dancing song, and it was like I was so excited. And like when you're really fully lit up, like you're like, yes, like everything's exciting. Like,
Well, that's what life
and
is.
yes,
Like that's what it is. And sometimes we're in the trenches, but then you get those moments when you finish your song, when finish the marathon, whatever it is you're working on, like it
yeah.
lights you up in a way that can keep you going forever.
Well, and
Like,
your kids see that, and your kids
eh,
are like, oh, like life is amazing. Look at what's possible.
that's
And
right.
look how much more fun mom is to be around. And like, look at her granting me permission to live my life.
That's right. And it's right. I mean, I want my girls to see that I matter too. I don't think it's smart for us women to raise daughters or kids who think that their mom doesn't matter. Like we have to declare that it matters. And look,
Yeah.
to be really honest, there are also seasons where we don't really get to take care of ourselves. Let's be honest. Like when my son last year had a season
Yeah.
of he was not well. We were in and out of the ER. We didn't know what was wrong with him. It turned into 2 months, and that was really, really taxing and hard, and he's not verbal, so we were all guessing every day. But you got to just change your mindset. Like I was telling some of the ladies at this retreat I led in December, that when Asher is dysregulated like a lot, like one of my best tools is to put him in the car seat and put him in the car, and we just go for a drive. We'll drive down to Laguna
Mhm.
Beach, we'll watch the ocean. And sometimes that happens during my set aside hours that I have for myself, like once a week. And sometimes my entire break for that week is taken up by driving him around Orange County. And I will do it because it makes him happy, and we listen to loud music. So I change my mindset. Instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't get to have my time, or panicked now because I'm going to be exhausted all week, and how am I going to recover, and I didn't get to have my time. I just have to change the story. And so I get in the car. I'm like, okay, Asher, we're going on our ride. I wear like, comfy shoes, like my Uggs. I I put on music we both love. Like I'm such a cheesy like 80s person, or like I love cheesy music, right? So we're listening to Cyndi Lauper, and like we put it all on, and he's down with it. Like he was listening to Wind Beneath My Wings at the dentist. Like we do what we got to do. And then we'll go through the Starbucks drive-through to get my favorite latte. And now I've got myself a hot drink, and we're all buckled in. We're sitting, we're relaxing. And then I'm like, oh, let's go look at the ocean. And we drive on PCH to go look at the ocean. And we make that the break. And I change my mindset and say, okay, this is going to be our moment today, and we're going to do it this way. And that's okay. It's beautiful. We get to see the sunset. We got to have a coffee. I mean, we got to listen to Wind Beneath
Mm.
My Wings. You got to change the story, because sometimes we don't get to control how it's done, but we can control where our mind is.
Yes, we forget that like we're in charge of the story that we tell ourselves and how much power that has. Like if the story that's coming out of your head is that I'm the victim here, then you have the power to change that.
100%. And maybe you're living in the hospital. I've done that. And for postpartum, I mean, I didn't even have my own bathroom within 12 hours of delivering this baby. And I'm living in a hospital, having to walk across the hospital in the middle of the night to use the restroom. He was a very large baby, and it was crazy, but maybe it's okay, I'm going to put my makeup on today at the hospital, which is something I did every day. I'm a makeup person.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. So I put on gobs of makeup while I'm sitting there with my newborn who's hooked up to all the machines. And I decided to make my, the little bed area that I have in the hospital. I make that look pretty. Like, here's my special blanket I brought from home. And oh, here's my pillow I brought from home. And it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And it's always, we don't have control all the time, but we get to control the story. And we got to figure out, how am I going to make this a good story today? Because, maybe I'm going to go in the hospital to the family room and try and make friends with another mom right now. Or maybe I saw that mom looked really down. I'm going to go buy some M&Ms and I'm going to bring it to her right now. Because you know what? M&Ms are
love
magic in the
that.
children's hospital. We all want that. I mean,
Yeah.
I wish I was the mom that wanted salad when I'm staying in the hospital.
No,
You know what I mean? So we got to just, however it is, whatever speaks to you, we all have something different that lights us up. We have to figure out what that is by making the time for it. And then we have to go do it unapologetically, create the time, get people involved to support it, build your community. It's everything.
So beautiful. This has been amazing. As we wrap up, is there anywhere you want us to follow you, to find you? Where can we follow you?
Yes, I am at Desiree Probolsky on Instagram, and my new community that I launched for all special needs moms and medical moms, and I say we come together to find our joy while honoring our grief, which is
Oh,
very
I love it.
that's called Situation Mama, and that's situationmama.com. So if you'd like to join our community, our online meetings, right now we have an online meeting every week on Thursdays. It's at 10 a.m. Pacific time, but I'll be adding more meetings. And yeah, we're growing. We're just getting started, but we're growing rapidly, and we know that these moms want a community, and it's aside from the retreats, it's mostly online. And we have moms who have us in their ear at the doctor's office or wherever they are, and you don't have to be on camera. So if you're available and want to start building community in your life, come join us, come with us.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Thank you, Carolee. This is amazing. I appreciate the time to share, and I appreciate your love and light in this world. You are extraordinary.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Multi-Passionate Mama podcast. I know that we can never be told too many times how amazing we are, so in case you haven't been told today, you are a freaking rock star. When you let yourself shine, you allow other people to take off their filters and shine brightly too. It's about time someone gave you permission to be all of you. If you enjoyed this show, please leave me a review and hit that subscribe button. I know you want more of this. Sharing is caring. Let someone you love know how incredible they are by texting them the link to this episode. They will feel so good just knowing that you thought about them. Lastly, if you want to know more about my courses and coaching, be sure to check out my website for up-to-date details on everything I have available. It's caroleegarrison.com, and the link is in the show notes. Always remember that you are a diamond. Don't let anyone dim your sparkle.